Okay, so you guys want to talk about Section 8. Well, I love Section 8. I know it gets a bad rep, and there's a lot of myths surrounding it, but there's a reason why the landlords who rent to Section 8 voucher recipients, it's a reason why we do it. Okay, first of all, if you're not familiar with what Section 8 is, it is a government subsidized voucher program, and it essentially follows the person, not necessarily the property. Okay, so a person will apply for Section 8. A lot of times there's a lottery. They will have to qualify, likely based on income and family size. And once they are approved, they get a voucher to pay a certain percentage of rent wherever they choose to live. It's not like a certain Section 8 area or a Section 8 building or something like that where they have to choose. So they can go to a landlord like you, like me, anyone who owns a house that's for rent. A question that I get a lot about Section 8 vouchers is, well, what if, I don't want that tenant? Well, listen, Section 8 doesn't assign you a tenant. So let me walk you through this process real quick. The way that you get a tenant for Section 8 is the exact same way that you get a tenant for any other property. You're going to have a property that's available, and you will start doing lead generation to find a tenant. Now you can use affordablehousing.com because that's where most of the Section 8 voucher recipients are looking for rental properties or properties to rent. Just like any other tenant situation, you're going to screen. They're going to have to apply. You're going to have to vet them, just like any other tenant. So I think that really takes away the myth that you're going to get some crazy tenant. If you get a crazy tenant, it's because you didn't do your due diligence, but it's not because Section 8 is assigning people and saying this is who you must have in your property. I hope that helps to clarify. Now, I will say that my screening and vetting for my Section 8 tenants is pretty rigorous. It's pretty rigorous because a lot of times, well, not a lot of times, I'm always going to be renting out a single family home. And there are some instances where most of these recipients have never had to take care of a house before. It's one thing to live in an apartment building or subsidized housing or something like that. That's an apartment or, townhouse style or something like that. But now they're going to be moving into my 2-story single family home that also has an attic and a basement and a backyard and a front yard. You see what I'm saying? And a garage. So there's a huge learning curve there. So when I'm looking for tenants, the first thing is I have a screening application that everyone must follow. So when someone says they're interested in my property, I send them the link. The link is going to take them to a questionnaire. The questionnaire is going to ask them preliminary questions. Have you ever been evicted? And not just have you ever been evicted, but have you ever gone through the eviction process or ever had the eviction process started? Because there's a difference. People can move out right before the eviction and then they don't get the eviction on their record, right? But I want to know, have you even ever had one started against you? I'm also going to be checking references. I'm going to have them tell me who their most recent landlord was, and I'm going to check it. And I'm hip to if you have your friend, acting like a former landlord, because I know the probing questions that only another landlord will be able to answer. And then here's a tip. Here's a tip. Okay, so you're going to do your normal vetting process. Like I told you guys, I have a questionnaire. Once they pass the questionnaire has specific instructions. So people who aren't following those instructions, they won't make it through the next round. People who don't answer certain questions the way that I want them answered, make sure you are following the Fair Housing Act, though, people. You can't ask them stuff like, do you have a kid? And then say, well, I'm not renting to people with kids. You can't, or do you have a disability? Because I'm not renting to people with disabilities. You can't do that, okay? Okay, so make sure you are doing it in a fair, non-biased way. However, for me, like the evictions, like I mentioned earlier, is something that I am going to ask, and I am going to use that to determine whether or not you'll be the right tenant for me. Okay, there's other layers though. So that's the first part. That's just a screener to see who's following directions, who's following instructions, who meets my just basic preliminary minimum standards. And then from there, I am going to ask for additional documentation. So some of the documents that I ask for is going to be your credit history, not because I think you're going to have a great credit score, but I just want to see your integrity. Or is it because you're just not paying people? Is it because you maybe just got some student loans and got behind? Like for me, those are two totally different situations. So that's why I want to see the credit report, not so much the credit score. I also try to look for people who are like on the trajectory to doing better in life. Maybe they're currently in nursing school, or they're currently, in college or something, and they just have a greater goal that they're reaching toward, because that tends to have a different mindset than someone who isn't. And then here's a little trick. My mentor taught me this one. I like to get on a Zoom call with them or a face-to-face meeting, and I prefer to do it at the property where they're currently living. And that's just for me, because I want to see how you take care of where you currently are. Even if I can't get inside your house and you're not comfortable with that, I at least want to still ride by, because I want to see, are you taking care of the exterior of it? When your kids are outside playing or something, if I happen to see that, are you yelling and cursing at them, or are you treating them with respect? Because if you treat your children with respect, they're going to respect my house. Or are they all over the place? I mean, it's just certain small little intricacies that I'm looking for. So that's why I have excellent histories with my Section 8 tenants. They take better care of my properties, I'm telling you, than I probably take care of my own property that I live in. I mean, they take care of it with pride. If something, breaks, or if something, we have a leak or something, they stay on top of it. And a lot of times they'll do what they can to fix it in term until I'm able to go and get it taken care of. So I really love working with the Section 8 program. Now, in order for you to become a Section 8 landlord, you are going to have to go through a certification class. It was like an hour. I think now it's even on Zoom. And they kind of teach you the ins and outs, and they answer a lot of these questions that a lot of you guys might have right now about it. Like, how do I get paid? What if I have a property manager? Things like that. It's just going to answer all the small things. What if I do have to evict? They'll even give you some guidance on screening and vetting your tenants. So you're going to have to go through that certification program anyway, and a lot of it is all online. My ideal, so to make sure I'm answering this right. Oh, yes. The question was, why Section 8? Well, two reasons. Number one, Section 8 keeps paying, right? It's a government funded program. Even during the pandemic, they kept paying me on time, where a lot of other landlords are having issues with that. And number two, they're going to pay me fair market rent. So FMR, fair market rent. So that means, like, some of my properties might not be in the best neighborhoods, right? And so if I were to get a cash renter in there, maybe they'll only pay like $400 or $500. But because Section 8 does it based on the fair market rate, they're going to pay me whatever the average is for that entire area. And so there's been instances where maybe a cash buyer would have only given me, a cash renter would have only given me $400, but Section 8 is paying me $1,200 because that's the fair market rent, whereas the cash rent is just based on what that demographic can afford to pay. So that's why Section 8 for me. Those are the two main reasons. And number three, I mean, I think anyone in real estate business or entrepreneurship who have a heart for it, I mean, you're going to say you love the idea of giving a family a beautiful place to stay. When I renovate my properties, I renovate them beautifully. Okay, my Section 8 properties have designer black backsplash. They have ceramic tile. I usually like to have brand new kitchens and brand new bathrooms. These are beautiful homes that I'm renting with Section 8, not some rundown shack like you might think. And that's a huge myth as well. Section 8 won't even allow a voucher recipient to live in a shack. Okay, they come through and they do an inspection. So they do an initial move-in inspection, and they'll give you the report and tell you, like, if you fail the initial inspection, they'll tell you these are the things that you need to fix to make this meet our minimum standards for our program. And then every year after that, they'll come through and do another inspection, as long as the Section 8 tenant is there. Remember, the voucher follows the tenant, not your property. Okay, so the idea of like the slumlords and all of that with Section 8, that's not happening. There is an inspection process, and you will need to make sure that that property meets the standard for it. My properties exceed it. My properties are absolutely beautiful. And I find that when I'm finding the great tenants that I find because of my screening process, and I'm offering them a beautiful home to stay in, we have a wonderful relationship because they're good people and they really enjoy and appreciate the beautiful home that I've provided for them and their families. Okay, so rent offer. Section 8 is going to have you complete an application. So let's say you found your tenant, you vetted them, you screened them, everything went well. They are then going to have you fill out a packet. The packet is going to just give more information about you, more information about the property, who should they pay? Do they pay you, or do you have a property manager? Things like that. That's where you get all of the front end paperwork complete. Okay. Once you have that packet submitted, they're going to review it, and then they're going to make you a rent offer. Now, the rent offer is going to be based on what the property includes. So, for instance, I take care of water and sewage, which if you are a landlord, you need to take care of the water and sewage. Here's why. If the water gets cut off because the tenant isn't paying for it, you're going to get in big trouble for that. And it's going to be very difficult for you to evict. You're just going to cause yourself a world of trouble. So I like to make sure that I'm in control of the water. However, the heating and electric, well, that could be on the tenant, right? But let's say, so if I were to provide though heating and electricity, then my rent offer will be more. Section 8 gives you, they have like a scale, and depending on what you take care of, they give you a certain amount of money for it per month. Even if you're like providing a stove, providing a refrigerator, things like that, they'll pay you in increments every single month that you're providing that, and that will be in your rent offer. So that's just totally up to you on how you run your rental property and what exactly it is that you provide in your rentals. I do not provide a stove. I do not provide a refrigerator, because a lot of landlords, I'm not sure if you know this or not, but if you provide those appliances, then you are responsible for the upkeep and maintenance of those appliances. So let's say if the refrigerator goes out because you provided the refrigerator, then it's going to be your responsibility to repair it or replace it. A lot of my properties are not where I live, anywhere near where I live. So it just wouldn't be in my best interest to have to go and be responsible for all of that. The tenant is going to be responsible for paying the deposit. Now, for me, I'm not going to ask for first, last month's rent and a deposit. I'm just going to ask you for your deposit because I know that Section 8 is going to be paying the rent on their behalf. So, but I do ask for a deposit. You need to ask for a deposit as well. No matter how great you screen the tenant, no matter how well you vetted your tenants, things happen. Things happen, and you need the deposit there to buffer that. Let me make sure I answered all the questions. Okay, well, I believe I answered all of the questions about Section 8. Of course, if you have more questions, or you want to talk to me or have a consultation about how Section 8 works or how you can get started, or if you're already started and you just need some guidance getting through it, reach out to me. This is what I do. I am a professor at the Mastery College of Real Estate. All I do is teach real estate, business, and finance all day long. I'll be more than happy to have a conversation with you about it. Reach out before it's too late, okay? Don't get yourself in a pickle and then try to get yourself out of it. If you know that this is the route you're thinking about going, reach out to me. Let's hop on a quick consult, and I'll be happy to have a conversation with you about your Section 8 rentals.